Okay, next I will introduce the cutting disc. First of all, the most common use is the cutting disc for metal. If you look closely, its thickness actually is very thin. It is only about 1 millimeter thick. And also INGCO metal cutting disc have different size and different package. Since this is the most common used cutting disc, so the safety is very important. That is why David here to see more about the safety issue. In addition to this cutting metal disc, we also have this kind of grading disc. And this grading disc is actually the same material as the cutting disc. This kind of grading disc is used for grading arrow. You can see here, the thickness is a little more thick than the cutting disc. Take the simplest example. If I solder these two iron rods together, there will be solder joints protruding on them. If I want to smooth it, I can use this grading disc to smooth it. Or when I cut it, it was bristled or cut diagonally and I want to smooth it out, you can use this kind of grading disc and remove the burrs. And also, I should remind everyone that you can't use this metal disc for grading. It is very dangerous. Because this kind of grading disc is thick, it is not easy to fry and also not easy to break. It is especially used for iron grading. But this kind of grading disc, because it is hard, the force is very large. When it hits the iron, it will chip off a large piece. The iron is like butter when it hits it, and it will chip off a large piece when it hits the iron. So use a little less force or you may overcut. Like this thick grading disc, you will wear down to the back. It will be smaller and smaller, but relatively speaking, it will be much safer for cutting discs. However, you should also pay attention when using it because the angle grinder runs very fast, so you must pay attention to the safety. Okay, if you want to polish the metal, you can also use this kind of cutting disc. This kind of disc, relatively soft pieces. You may feel very hard, but actually it is relatively soft when it encounters arrow. It can wear off the paint on the surface, but it will not change the shape of the arrow. Unlike the grading disc that I just introduced now, because this model can cut off a large pieces, but this kind of grading disc will not only wear off the paint or rust layer on the surface, it is also more practical. However, this kind of grading wears out very quickly, and it has to be replaced with a new one after a few uses. So if you need to grading a large area, you may need to prepare some more pieces. And also, in addition, there are some similar pieces of this grading disc, like these two models, which are all side-skinned pieces of this angle grinder. Yes, you can see these two pieces. Like them, they are composed of very small pieces of sandpaper. This disc can also grade off a layer of metal surface. Relatively speaking, it falls between this kind of grading disc and this kind. The function and the force is between these two models. Gently grading can remove the paint on the surface, but if you grind very hard, you can also dent the surface a bit. It's just that it's not as strong as the solid pieces just now. It's mainly used to grade metal. So you can see, for the grading function, we also have different model of disc for our customers to choose. Finally, I will introduce these two kinds of cutting discs. They are mainly used for cutting ceramic tiles or stones. It is made of metal, which is different from this grading disc just now. This one is made of metal, like sometimes you want to cut ceramic tiles, you can use these grading wheels to cut. But you know, and grinder is not mainly used to cut ceramic tiles or stones, because tiles can be scratched with a knife and can be broken after scratching. Sometimes it is mostly weird shapes with this cut, like cutting a corner or something.